If you're anything like me, you spend a lot of your downtime when you're not busy creating cool stuff on two things: doubting your own work and looking at other people's work. And if you're even more like me, both of it leads to unhappiness sooner or later. So today I want to give you a 3-step plan that has really helped me improve my overall happiness when it comes to my work. Step 1. Know your timeline. I used to have a huge collection of saved Instagram posts. I had a multitude of collections on Behance and I would constantly craft mood boards around epic things I wanted to create. This basically got to a point where if I was not creating something myself, I would always be consuming someone else's work. Don't get me wrong, looking at other people's work can bring you a lot of joy and inspiration, but do it for too long and eventually you'll hit a point where you feel like everyone's always in cooler places than you, getting better opportunities than you, shooting cooler stuff than you, and getting more attention for it on social media. And you will find yourself saying something like,
I could have taken that photo too.
And you're probably right. See, every one of us moves along a timeline throughout their career. The way you move further on that timeline is through a combination of hard work and luck, which in itself is a combination of opportunity, preparation, and timing. The amount of work you can put in depends on the amount of your resources. Those resources being things like time, connections, money, and energy. So the most amount of work you can possibly put in is your very own 100% considering all of your resources. You start out as a beginner and eventually you'll land your first gig shooting a friend's wedding or shooting a video for their small business. This video then gets picked up by the owner of the gym you've been training at for years and he wants one too. Add some more work and some more luck to this and congratulations, you've got yourself a business. At some time, you'll reach a point where you've mastered most of the craft itself. At this point, further progress is much less dependent on your actual creative skills and much more dependent on things like consistency, building connections, and how much value you can actually offer people. Now, as you go about your daily swiping, you might come across someone's work that isn't far from yours from a technical standpoint. But what you don't see is the hours that this person has put into building relationships with the people that they're working with now, and for how long they might have been building their career. They might be at a completely different point on their timeline, and they also might have been luckier than you. Now, I know this doesn't sound like something that is going to make you happier, but let me explain. Luck can be attributed to 3 things: opportunity, preparation, and timing. I've gotten quite lucky just recently, so this story will make for a perfect example. I'm very much a car guy. I enjoy being around and driving beautiful cars, and I've thought quite a lot about moving into the space of commercial car photography. But let's just say that it's not quite the easy field to get into. So I get a call from a friend of mine who's also a photographer, and he asks me if I can take over a job for him because he's already booked on a different job that day. And he goes, "It's something for Bugatti." So he gives my number to a guy at the agency that's doing the job, and the guy calls me about an hour later and talks to me about all the stuff that they do in the automotive industry and that they're currently looking for photographers to take onto their roster because they can barely keep up with work. But the guy is also really honest with me and tells me that the job they are asking me to shoot right now isn't really that cool and that it's just shooting some Bugatti related clothing at a dealership and that it's not that well paid either. I really contemplated if I should do the job because these so-called easy jobs very often turn into way more of a hassle than you thought they would be, and then they are not well paid, you know the drill. But I also told myself that I would be more open to opportunity, so I ended up doing it. We do the shoot, everything goes great, and the client ends up being really happy with the pictures. A few days later I talked to the guy and he goes, "We're flying to Norway with Audi in 2 weeks and we still have an open spot. It would be unpaid, but all costs will be covered for you. Do you want to come?" So I end up going to Norway. One of the most well-organized trips I've ever been on. Locations are epic, the weather is a disaster 90% of the time, and we end up almost losing the camera guy's drone twice. But I go home with a bunch of nice pictures for my portfolio and a free trip to Norway. About 4 weeks later, I'm sitting at my desk, it's around 6 p.m, I get a call. It's the agency guy and he's asking me if I want to go to Gran Canaria with Audi for 24 hours the next day. So I end up rescheduling a meeting and about 12 hours later I find myself boarding a plane to Gran Canaria. And again, it's a super well organized trip. I get a car all to myself, drive it around the island, taking photos, flying my drone, end up at 5 miles of private mountain road that Audi had closed off for everyone that joined the event, and I end up having some of the best 24 hours of my life. This story is the perfect example of being lucky. There was an opportunity that presented itself, and I was prepared for it because over the years I've built a skill set that was required to take on the opportunity. I also was in the right place at the right time because I was the person that was called to do it and I was available. And this opportunity then led to more opportunities that I was also prepared for and also had the right timing for. But note how it was completely out of my control that these opportunities presented themselves. Which is why you have to create as many possibilities to get lucky as you can. Take that gig with your friendly local small business. Write that cold email to the client you've always wanted to work with. Try yourself out in that new creative field that you don't know much about yet. You will never know when opportunity might present itself. You can only leave the door open for it and be ready to jump on it and take a ride when it comes to you. Until then, be smart enough to know that you have to give it your 100%. The 100% that you can give with your resources at your given point on the timeline. But also be smart enough to know that any real progress is also reliant on outside sources and that you and the quality of your work are not the sole reason that things might be going a little rough at the moment. Step 2. Be honest with yourself. Most people know what they like to create, or so they think. I advise you to actually sit down, take a deep dive and really be honest with yourself on this one. Let me circle back to the Audi trip to Gran Canaria. So the trip is done, I fly home the next day, I deliver the content to the client is very happy and so am I. But not for long. When I first edited the pictures, I was very pleased with my work. I was pleased that I had made a move into the automotive industry and I was stoked to share the work online. I got a lot of very great feedback on how epic the trip looked and how good the photos were. A few days pass and I go back to look at the pictures and they give me nothing. They are cool and all and they made the client happy, but that's it. There's nothing more to them. No backstory or anything, nothing that really interests me anymore. So I do the deep dive and what I end up realizing is that what I was enjoying about this automotive photography thing was not the finished work that stood at the end. What I actually enjoyed was being around and driving nice cars in scenic places and really taking my time to set up good compositions because there was no one around that could have gotten annoyed by me taking too long. I realized that I did not really have an interest in shooting commercial photos of cars for clients. What I actually had an interest in were the circumstances that I thought operating in this field would give me. And that in combination with a few other things that surround creative work in the car industry led to me not pursuing it any further because in the end I want to do something that I do for the finished product. Diving deep down into yourself will help you find what it actually is that you seek in your work and it will help you in spending your time working towards it. Part 3. How to share your work. Since we now know how to be content with our current position on the timeline and we know what it is that we truly seek in our work, there is only one last obstacle we need to master. Sharing our work. If you want to find any success as a creative, you will have to share your work sooner or later. Doesn't matter if you want to become an artist or find commercial success, if nobody is ever going to see your work, you will forever be stuck with doing it just for yourself. Which is fine if that's what you enjoy. For the rest of you who want to get their stuff seen, you'll eventually get discouraged by metrics and bad feedback. Here's what has helped me to overcome this. Before you go about posting anything online, take a good look at your finished work and ask yourself if you're satisfied with it. Ask yourself if you did anything within your resources to make this as good as you possibly could. You might want to take a step back after you finished and let it sit for 1 or 2 days. Then come back and think about it. And if you decide that you're happy with it, stick with it. Because if you manage to consistently create things that are of value to you, chances are that at some point you will find an audience that will also value your work. Don't let the fact that you like what you're creating be destroyed by a random metric in a random app or a random person on the internet. Don't let these things dismantle how you view your work. I recently came across this interview with Kanye West and what he says really resonated with me.
It's kind of fun because when this goes online or whatever it is, it really matters and it like really doesn't matter. What matters is, the people who are sparked by it. And the people who are like offended by it, it doesn't fucking matter. Fuck you, because it's about motivating the doers. And anyone that wants to sit around and talk shit, they're taking too much time talking shit about it instead of getting up off their ass and following their dreams. Because I'm here to follow my dreams, and help other people follow their dreams and inspire people who are dreamers.
So before you share your work online, ask yourself if you are happy with it. And if you take in opinions from others, take in opinions from those that offer constructive criticism. Because after all, art is never made for everyone. Hey guys, I hope this video can be a guide on your way to finding happiness. If you stuck around until now, I really want to thank you. Since this is my first video, any form of feedback or if you even want to like, comment or subscribe is much appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.